The first line read, "The sweetest screams are those that echo in the silence of the night." My hands trembled as I held the worn-out journal, its pages filled with dark confessions. How had such a sinister relic found its way into our town's peaceful library? It was 1990, and the library had been my refuge since the accident, a place where I could lose myself among the pages and forget the fragments of memories that eluded me. Doctors had a term for it, amnesia. My wife, whom I had to rediscover and fall for all over again, called it fate. Our daughter, a beacon of joy, was my connection to a life I barely remembered. On that fateful day, tucked between dusty history books, the leather-bound journal had beckoned me. Its title, Confessions, was both an invitation and a warning. The entries within were a descent into madness, detailing acts of torture and murder with a chilling detachment. Each description was meticulous, painting a picture so vivid it felt as if I was reliving the events. The landmarks mentioned, the little details, they all hinted at a terrifying truth. These horrors had unfolded in my very town. As I immersed myself in the journal, a soft whisper began to resonate in my mind, growing louder with each page. "Remember," it urged, a voice from the abyss of forgotten memories. That night, the journal by my bedside, the whispers transformed into a chorus, echoing the sins of the past and hinting at a connection I dared not acknowledge. The next day, I decided to investigate. The journal had mentioned an old abandoned house on Elm Street. I knew the place. It had been deserted for years, a relic of a bygone era. With the journal in hand, I made my way there. The house stood silent, its windows boarded up, its paint peeling. But as I approached, I felt a strange sense of déjà vu. I entered cautiously. The air was thick with dust and the silence was deafening. But then I heard it. A faint whisper, echoing the words from the journal. I followed the sound, leading me to the basement. There, in the dim light, I found a room. The walls were lined with photographs, each capturing a moment of terror, and in the center, a chair with restraints stained with what looked like dried blood. The reality hit me like a ton of bricks. The journal wasn't just a work of fiction. It was a record, a confession of unspeakable acts that had taken place right here. The weight of the revelation was overwhelming. I felt dizzy, my vision blurred, and the whispers grew louder, drowning everything else. I stumbled out of the house, gasping for air. The world around me seemed to spin. I needed answers. I decided to confront the librarian. She was an old woman, having served the library for decades. She listened patiently as I recounted my discovery. She sighed. "That journal has been here for as long as I can remember. Many have read it, but none have reacted the way you have." I showed her the entries, the detailed descriptions, the photographs I had taken of the room. She looked at me with pity. "Son, that house has been abandoned for over 50 years. The events you read about happened long before you were born. But the dates in the journal, the details, they all pointed to recent events. It didn't make sense." The whispers returned, louder than ever. "Remember." I left the library, my mind racing. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but the picture they formed was too horrifying to comprehend. The journal, the house, the memories that eluded me, they were all connected. That night, as I lay in bed, the final piece clicked. The journal was mine. The memories, the acts of torture and murder, they were all committed by me. The devil's voice laughed. "You remember." The weight of my sins crushed me. The faces of my victims haunted my dreams. The devil had won, and I was his pawn. The morning sun streamed through the curtains, but its warmth couldn't penetrate the cold dread that had settled in my heart. The journal lay on the bedside table, its pages filled with my darkest secrets. Secrets I didn't even remember until now. I tried to recall the events leading up to the accident. Fragments of memories flashed before my eyes. A rainy night, the blinding headlights of an oncoming car, the deafening crash, and then nothing. A void. The doctors had said it was a miracle I survived, but at what cost? My wife, Clara, noticed the change in me. "Stu, you've been distant lately. Talk to me," she pleaded, her eyes filled with concern. How could I tell her the truth? That the man she loved, the father of her child, was a monster? I decided to visit the old house on Elm Street again. Maybe, just maybe, I could find some answers there. As I approached, the whispers returned, guiding me. I made my way to the basement, to the room that had haunted my dreams. The photographs on the walls seemed to mock me, each one a testament to my sins. In the corner, I found a box. Inside were more journals, each one detailing my heinous acts. The dates went back decades, long before I was even born. It didn't make sense. How could I have written these? The devil's voice chuckled. Time is a mere construct, Stu. You and I, we're eternal. I remembered the deal I had made with him. A second chance at life in exchange for my soul. The accident, the amnesia, it was all part of his plan. He had used me, made me commit unspeakable acts, all for his amusement. I felt a rage building inside me. I wouldn't let him win. I decided to confront him. Show yourself, I demanded. A dark shadow emerged, taking the form of a man. You called? He asked, his voice dripping with malice. Why? Why me? I shouted. He laughed. You were the perfect pawn, so eager to live, so willing to do my bidding. I felt helpless, trapped in a nightmare with no way out. But then, a thought occurred to me. The journals. They were the key. If I could destroy them, maybe, just maybe, I could break free from the devil's grasp. With renewed determination, I gathered all the journals and set them on fire. The flames consumed them, turning them to ash. The devil screamed in rage, "You think this will stop me?" I looked him in the eye. "I won't be your puppet anymore." He laughed. "You may have destroyed the journals, but the memories, the sins, they're a part of you. You can't escape them." I knew he was right. The weight of my sins would always be with me. But I was determined to make amends, to find a way to atone. I returned home, my heart heavy. Clara was waiting for me. She hugged me tight. "I don't know what you're going through, Stu, but we'll face it together." I looked into her eyes, tears streaming down my face. "I love you," she smiled. "I love you too." We held each other, finding strength in our love. The road ahead would be long and challenging, but together we would face it. The days that followed were a blur. The town was abuzz with whispers about the journals in the old house on Elm Street. Some believed it was the work of a deranged mind, while others whispered about the devil's influence. I kept to myself, haunted by the weight of my sins and the devil's constant taunting. One evening, as I sat in the living room, the lights flickered. A cold wind blew through the room and the devil appeared before me. "Did you think you could escape me so easily, Stu?" he sneered. I stood my ground. "I won't be your puppet anymore," he laughed. "You're mine, Stu, forever." Suddenly, the room transformed. I found myself in a dimly lit chamber, surrounded by the souls of my victims. Their eyes, filled with pain and accusation, bore into me. The weight of their gaze was suffocating. The devil circled me. "Welcome to your own personal hell." I tried to move, but my feet were rooted to the spot. The souls reached out, their cold fingers brushing against my skin. Their whispers filled the room. "Murderer, monster." I closed my eyes, trying to block out the voices, but they grew louder, more insistent. The pain, the guilt, it was overwhelming. Suddenly, a familiar voice broke through the cacophony. "Stu!" I opened my eyes to see Clara, standing at the edge of the chamber. She reached out, her hand outstretched. "Come to me," she urged. I tried to move, but the souls held me back. The devil laughed. "She can't save you." But Clara's voice was unwavering. "Stu, remember our love. Remember our daughter. Fight!" With renewed determination, I pushed through the souls, reaching out for Clara's hand. As our fingers touched, a blinding light filled the room, banishing the darkness. The devil screamed in rage. "This isn't over, Stu." But his voice grew fainter, and I found myself back in the living room, Clara by my side. She hugged me tight. "I won't let him take you." I looked into her eyes, tears streaming down my face. "Thank you." Together we faced the challenges that lay ahead, determined to protect our family from the devil's grasp. The sun rose on a town forever changed. Rumors about the journals and the devil's influence had spread like wildfire. Some viewed me with suspicion, while others whispered about my supposed pact with the devil. But amidst the chaos, Clara stood by me, a pillar of strength. We decided to seek help. The town's priest, Father O'Malley, was known for his knowledge of the supernatural. Hesitant, I approached him, the weight of my sins heavy on my shoulders. Father O'Malley listened patiently as I recounted my ordeal. When I finished, he looked deep into my eyes. "The devil preys on the weak, Stu. but redemption is always within reach. He handed me a small vial filled with holy water. "This will protect you," he said, "but the path to redemption is one you must walk yourself." I nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. With Clara by my side, I began my journey towards atonement. We visited the families of my victims, seeking forgiveness. Some doors were slammed in our faces, while others listened with tear-filled eyes. The weight of my sins was immense, but with each act of contrition, I felt a burden being lifted. One evening, as I sat in the town square, an old man approached me. His eyes, filled with wisdom, bore into mine. "I've been watching you, Stu," he said. "The path you're on, it's a difficult one." I nodded. "I know, but I have to make things right." The old man smiled. "Redemption is a journey, not a destination. Remember that." His words resonated with me. The journey was long and arduous, but with Clara's unwavering support, I persevered. Months turned into years. The town slowly began to heal, and so did I. The devil's voice, once a constant presence, grew fainter with each passing day. I found solace in my family, in Clara's love and our daughter's laughter. One day, as I stood by the old house on Elm Street, now a symbol of my dark past, I felt a presence behind me. I turned to see the old man from the town square. He smiled. "I told you redemption was a journey." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "Thank you." He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Remember, Stu, the past can't be changed, but the future is yours to shape." With that, he disappeared, leaving me with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. The devil had tried to break me, but love and redemption had prevailed. I looked up at the sky, grateful for the second chance I had been given. The years passed, and life in the small town returned to a semblance of normalcy. The tales of the journals and the devil's influence became stories parents told their children to keep them in line. But for me, the scars of the past remained, a constant reminder of the darkness I had once embraced. My daughter Emily grew into a beautiful young woman, her laughter echoing the innocence I had once lost. Clara and I watched with pride as she graduated high school and prepared to leave for college. But as the day of her departure neared, the whispers returned. One evening, as I sat on the porch, the devil appeared before me. "Did you think you could escape your past, Stu?" he sneered. I stood my ground. "I've paid for my sins. Leave my family alone." He laughed. "Your soul is mine, Stu, and I always collect." I felt a cold dread settle in my heart. The devil had returned to claim what was his, but I was determined to protect my family at any cost. The next day, I visited Father O'Malley. He listened patiently as I recounted my encounter with the devil. When I finished, he handed me a small cross. "This will protect you," he said, "but remember, the devil preys on the weak. Stay strong." Armed with the cross and my unwavering determination, I prepared to face the devil. That night, as the clock struck midnight, he appeared before me. "You can't escape your fate," he hissed. I held up the cross. "I won't let you harm my family." The devil laughed. "Your soul is already mine, but I'll make you a deal. Give me another soul in exchange for yours, and I'll leave you and your family in peace." I looked into his eyes, the weight of the decision heavy on my shoulders. The thought of sacrificing another to save myself was unbearable, but the thought of leaving Clara and Emily alone was even worse. The devil sensed my hesitation. "Tick-tock, Stu. Time's running out." I took a deep breath. "I'll give you my soul willingly if you promise to leave my family alone." The devil smiled, a noble gesture. "But remember, a deal's a deal." With that, he disappeared, leaving me with a sense of foreboding. The next morning, I woke up to find the cross by my bedside, a reminder of the sacrifice I had made. The years passed, and life went on. Clara and Emily moved on, cherishing the memories we had made together. But for me, the chains of the past remained, a constant reminder of the price I had paid for redemption. As I stood on the edge of the abyss, the devil by my side, I looked back at the life I had lived, the mistakes I had made, the sins I had committed, and the love I had found. The journey had been long and arduous, but in the end, love and redemption had prevailed. The devil looked at me, his eyes filled with malice. "Are you ready?" I nodded. "I am." With that, I took the final step, embracing the darkness, but with the knowledge that my sacrifice had ensured the safety of my family.